Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have back with us Jeremy Lach, who's the president of Empire Marketing Partners, and we'll be talking about how annuity producers can go from a recognized retirement expert. Jeremy, welcome back to the program.
Always great to be here, Mike. Thank
you. It's interesting that I think that a lot of times, you think about like an actor or an actress that gets typecast. Oh, they're just the love, the rom-com, or they're just an action. And then one day you see them like breaking out into something opposite. And it's probably because their agent was saying, we don't want you to be only thought about as this. Well, I'm sure in the industry, you have seen producers, financial professionals that just produce and sell and provide annuities. But then when they start talking to their clients about more detailed, holistic, hey, we need to talk about a holistic retirement plan, or we need to bring in some legal experts and tax, they start going, well, hold on, I thought you just did my little, and there's a little breakdown. So I want to really dive into this because I think this is a powerful topic. What are you finding when you're working with your advisors? What do you find that separates kind of like the plain Jane vanilla commodity annuity sellers to a true retirement income specialist?
That's an excellent question. And we talk to them all. So, in 25 years of me doing this industry, it's the commodity seller is always talking about one thing, Mike, and that's products, right? He goes right into rates, caps, bonuses, all that stuff. That's the unique details of a particular product. Whereas, the retirement income specialist, he's going to spend his time talking about outcomes, And generally, that's where we spend our time, Mike, is with advisors that talk that way. I mean, everyone can offer any organization like mine can offer products, but we want to spend our time talking with advisors who like to talk about outcomes, and that is like predictable income, protecting lifestyle, things like that. It's I've got some firms that we work with here at Empire that don't even really use the word annuity, Mike, during their entire positioning process. It basically just comes up later after they've agreed on their ideas and the objectives, right? So, that is a major difference between, the commodity guy and their income specialist. And, like a doctor doesn't walk into the room, look at you, Mike, and say, you need this prescription. They're going to run tests. They're going to ask questions. They're going to understand the full picture first. That's the difference of the commodity guy and the income specialist.
Well, it's interesting that you said what you said there, because it makes me think of a concept and a book I've read, and it's all reiterating what you just said. But it's like you want to sell the futures, not the features, right? Because if all you're doing is talk about in the weeds of look at this annuity, look at this product, but you're not really talking about the big picture. You want to talk about the transformation someone will have. The peace of mind in retirement, to know that you're protecting their income. You can never lose money. You've got cash flow. There's no gap, all of those things. And then, we accomplish that by this product or this product. Let's look at some of those. But that's an interesting mindset shift that you're bringing up, because if someone is viewed as a product salesperson, you're a commodity. And guess what happens with commodities? They get shopped.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, how you position yourself and your services, that makes a huge difference. It's if you're again, a specialist, really those types of advisors, they compete more on clarity. You know what I mean? And so, for example, like if the markets are really volatile, Mike, an income specialist clients are going to probably stay calm, because they understand exactly how their income is protected. They understand exactly what they're utilizing structures for inside their portfolio. They understand exactly what they want. And I view an income specialist to be way more supportive from that standpoint versus the commodity guy, where that client might freak out. And we've heard those conversations before too.
Well, let's also talk about another aspect that might make an advisor freak out, which is, okay, I understand conceptually what you mean there, but I'm not really well versed or an expert in this area and this area and this area. And I don't want to bring it up to my client because I'm not really confident in that. So what do you say to that advisor where it's like, okay, be used to that and start learning, of course, but align with some experts that you can bring in, because obviously we're not going to give tax advice or legal advice. So you need to bring those experts in, but there actually could be some, money management or some other things that you bring in, some partners that are going to run that kind of meeting, but yet still benefit the client and benefit the advisor. What do you say to people that almost have like a little imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, we'll comment on the ones that would actually do it, in my opinion, the right way. You know what I mean? So, I've seen some of the top advisors out there. They're analyzing Social Security timing. You know what I mean? Like, when do we take these payments? And by the way, who doesn't have questions or concerns on that stuff, right, Mike? So, I've seen advisors that are talking about that, the tax buckets, pension options, income gaps, stuff like that before they even mention anything else with the in regards to their plan. So what really the annuity inside of an advisor who has a lot of experience or is more of the, income specialist, their plan, the annuity is just one tool inside of a comprehensive plan, inside of that deal. So, I look at, how they access that, and advisors have access to several different options and tools that are out in the industry today to compete in those areas that I just mentioned to you. Whether it's Social Security, the tax buckets, pensions, all that kind of stuff, supplementation, all that stuff matters. But the ones that have those systems and software and technology and access to those and utilize them the right way, those are the ones that win.
So I think that there's an interesting correlation there where you might have some advisors that have really, painted themselves in the corner and would recognize the fact that, I kind of have been focused on this one aspect, like just annuities, and that's what I'm known for. And I do recognize that I need to bring that holistic approach, and I'm going to learn more. I'm going to bring in an expert and all of that and talk about retirement income. That's what my clients need. But what do you say to them about going, how do I really establish myself as that authority, trustworthy, credible person, rather than just bringing it up in a conversation? Aren't there some ways that you would recommend that an advisor can start to pre-frame and educate and teach, like so that people can recognize that they do have that knowledge about something other than just annuities, like maybe speaking or, thought leadership kind of stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, and you were a huge influence for me on that, Mike. Positioning yourself with authority makes a huge difference. And, ultimately, yep. When I talk to advisors, and especially if they're doing educational workshops, let's just use that as an example, Mike. An advisor is doing educational workshops. If you're showing up and you're going to, and really, and how we help advisors do that to where, they're showing up and they're just basically going to provide information, right? And education. So, but I guarantee you, before that prospect shows up to that workshop, they're probably doing what, Mike? They're probably Googling you, and they're probably like, hey, who is this guy, Jeremy Lach, that's going to be doing the educational workshop today? I want to learn a little bit more about him. You've got to, when you could go out there and do things ahead of time to where they already show up to that meeting and they view you as an expert, that is going to dramatically increase both, your closings, your conversions, and probably your client quality. So, instead of having to spend a majority of your first meetings with these prospects just proving your credibility or trying to break down some barriers, now you can spend it solving problems. So that's a huge part of that.
And if we really were to put the truth serum lie detector on some of these people that do what you just said, like, I'm going to go Google to see what they're all about. In reality, why are they doing that? Because they're going, do I even want to show up to this thing? I signed up for this event and I don't know. Or I'm on this guy's calendar and let me see what Jeremy's all about. And I don't know, I'm just going to ghost him, but let me just check him out first real quick, just to confirm that, I'm not going to go to that. And if they do those due diligence searches and it's like all they see is your website and your LinkedIn and your directory listing, it's like, that's what I thought. That's all they got. But if they start looking you up and go, oh, that's pretty interesting, they've been featured in all of the things you just mentioned, that trust is elevated. And guess what happens then? They show up to the event pre-framed. They show up to that Zoom meeting with you. And so it's not just the mechanism of checking the box, yes, I did these things. It's for a reason. It's for that psychological impact that people have. And I think that we are creatures of, we're busy. I don't have the time to waste on someone that is just not going to cut it for me. And I feel like too many times we all are like, look, I just want to narrow it to the people that are on top. I might have to pay extra or whatnot. But in reality, in the financial services world, it's not even a matter of paying extra because, advisors get paid by the carriers. So it's really just, do I trust this person? That's pretty big. And you're not going to scale past a certain level if you don't have that going for you.
Mike, that is exactly it. It's all about the trust, right? And if that's established before you've even shaken hands with that prospect, those decisions are going to happen faster with, far less resistance, right? You know what I mean? So we don't want to compete. How do you get yourself away from the competitor? And that's establish that trust before you even shake hands.
You almost want them thinking in their mind, wow, I kind of hope that they'll accept me. They'll take me, from the perspective of that versus, oh, I'm just going to go to this sales pitch. I'm going to have my guard up and I'm going to answer one word responses. Well, that doesn't happen when you have been pre-framed and that trust and credibility is there. People are coming in going, hey, let me ask your opinion on this. How would I? And as soon as you have a client or a prospect asking you things like that, like, hey, let me ask your advice on this. How would it work if, and now they're on the same side of the table as you. And how is that kind of line of questioning happening? It's because you're trustworthy. So let's flip the script here and talk about some mistakes. What are mistakes advisors making that you see when they try to grow without strengthening brand credibility?
Well, my first thought there is stop wasting money on getting more without fixing the issue of branding first, right? So, advisors, where they fail is they start to increase all of their marketing money, their spending without really clarifying their message or their brand. And I've got advisors that I've had conversations with who just say, hey, I'm going to double my mailers and I'm going to double my business. But guess what? You still sound generic, and guess what generic messaging does? It produces inconsistent results, right? So stop wasting your money on trying to get more without fixing the issues. So if your message isn't clear and different, spending more money is only going to increase the confusion to your prospects, in my opinion.
That's pretty huge. And what you said about the mailer, it's like, okay, maybe logistically and literally you could double production by doubling the mailing, maybe, but how much leakage is happening there? Like you could have maybe doubled production with a 30% increase in your mailing because now you've got the foundation more effective. And it's really similar to when you were describing that. I thought of this. It's kind of like if you took a Ferrari engine and put it on old VW Bug chassis. The chassis is not going to handle it. It's too much. You got to have a solid foundation, and that's key. So personal brand, professional brand, that is a big piece of the equation. And I think that's what that mistake that you're talking about there, it ties into the deeper problem, which is it's a foundational problem. It's not just an execution problem.
Well, for sure. And, and even with that too, as well. I mean, even if you don't fix your branding and you just try to be different by doubling your money and expenses and doing more workshops, you're also doing something else. You're primarily relying on product differentiation, right? So products are going to change all the time. If you're doing the exact same thing and just using the exact same story, just selling the exact same products, these change every year, but if you build your brand and your reputation's only going to get stronger, right? So for example, do you want to be known as the retirement income guy or, that's in your community, right? If I'm in a certain community and where I'm working or I'm an advisor, I want to be known around the block as the guy that's the retirement income guy, right? That again, maybe that's not what everyone's going for, Mike, but ultimately, if that's something that you're known for versus the product guy, I think you have a huge differentiation than that other guy, right? I mean, being that kind of guy you're going to outlast any specific annuity features in your community, right? You know what I mean? All those features can be copied by your competitors. Being positioned like that can't be, right? So that's a huge part of the branding, and I've learned a lot from you on that, Mike.
Well, thank you, and I would say this too. Here's a big misconception people have about the word branding. It's people think, oh yeah, I hired my website guy to spruce up my website. Graphics person got me a new logo. We updated our colors. Branding is not just your brochures, logo, website, collateral. branding actually ties into what something else you said. It's the clarity of your message. It's the clear solution you have to a specific problem your prospects have. And it's all of those things around that increase credibility and trust around that message. Because if you're trying to be all things to all people, anything retirement, I can help you with Medicare and annuities and insurance and term. And people are like, what? This is not the store where I'm going, pick one. You need to have that thing, like you just said, as an example, the retirement income expert. Oh, what is that? Well, I'm the, cash flow expert or retirement income. The point is that's the ultimate far end transformation, arriving spot that people want to get to in retirement. How do we get there? Oh, well, now that you understand where we want to be with safety, security, peace of mind, income, cash flow, no gap, never run out of money, all of those things. Well, here's how we can get there. Because in your specific situation, so that's a big piece. And I want you to kind of reiterate the fact that I just said branding is not your logo, your colors, your website. It's all around the clarity of your message.
Clients choose you for who you are, right? Not just what you offer. Your prospects and your clients choose you for who you are. And that's exactly what that is you can have all these different tools and all that kind of stuff. But again, at the end of the day, the clients choose you for who you are. And when they believe that you could be the guy that could help them for something as important as, retirement income, health and distribution and all that stuff, and mitigate tax consequences and Social Security income and all that kind of stuff. When they know that you're the guy that could do that, you win, right?
Yeah.
They're going to call you because they believe that you solved that specific problem better than anyone else. That's authority.
I remember years and years ago going to a seminar, and maybe you remember this person. Do you remember the name Peter Montoya?
I do, yes.
And this seminar just has stuck with me for decades. It was called The Brand of You, the brand called you. And it was all on what we're talking about here, the personal brand. So yeah, you might work for XYZ company, but in reality, if you are branding yourself as the whatever expert and you're building relationships with your clients, they're coming because of you. And if you ever change the name of your company or change the company that you work for or whatever, they're like, okay, that's cool. So now what were you saying about how we need to do? It's your brand of how they perceive you in their mind. So that's just so huge. And guess what? Yes, you can spruce up your website and get a new logo and look at 4 options and go, I like that one. Click. You check the box. You don't need to do it again for a long time. Polishing up your messaging and the clarity of how you serve your clients, that is literally an ongoing process because you're always watching for people that kind of cock their head a little bit and go, well, how does that work again? And then you explain it, but then maybe you make a mental note to go, okay, I need to tweak my messaging on that because they didn't get it until I said this. So that's a big point. So let's kind of wrap up with this thought. How can being aligned with the right IMO accelerate an advisor's authority and visibility? Because as you've said a few times, it's not just about, we've got this product or this tool or this software.
Yeah, well, Mike, having the right IMO is not just one that provides contracts. We're gonna also provide strategy and the infrastructure you need to be successful. So instead of building everything from scratch, and like I talked about before on previous conversations, Mike, when you're an advisor and you're out on an island and you're out there by yourself, you need a partner, you need help. Otherwise, you're building everything from scratch. So, and if you got to build everything from scratch, you don't have a partner. Your IMO should help you roll out co-branded retirement income campaigns. And all that stuff is pretty easy after a pretty basic interview with an individual trying to figure out what they're looking for and what they're trying to accomplish, right?
Yep.
We want to help you design materials and, build that clear message around your brand. That is a huge part of being aligned with the right organization. If you don't feel that or you don't have that, again, like I've always said, maybe it's time to question those situations now. Maybe you don't have the right partner.
I've always kind of, jokingly tongue in cheek been like, if all you're getting is a spruced up PowerPoint presentation and going, go give this to your local, whatever, that's not marketing help. I mean, that's old. That's 90s version. So you need something that is cutting edge, something that is really going to help, amplify your message, increase that trust and credibility. That's really, really huge. And guess what that does? That helps take that annuity producer only, air quotes, to being that recognized retirement expert, just like what you've been talking about. So with that thought in mind, if someone is maybe thinking, hey, maybe Empire might have something that I'm looking for, what's the best way that they can learn a little bit more and then reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, I'd say just start directly at the website, www.empiremps, that's mattpaulsam.com, empiremps.com. There you'll find a lot of information on who we are, a little bit more about my background and what we do, why there's some advantages, but more importantly, it's got access to me and my email and my phone number directly to contact me, by the way, to have a conversation with me and introduce ourselves and then have a 15-minute introduction call.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate you coming back on.
Happy to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.